Welcome back to Behind the Billboard, the podcast that gets behind the people, the projects, and the stories behind the world's best billboards. I'm joined, as ever, by my partner in crime, my pod pal and friend for life, Hugh Todd.
Hi, I've been told to keep it brief. Story of my life. So yeah, welcome back. Very excited at Series 3.
Well, you say Series 3, but we have already had Tiger on and Mike. So yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. Do you know what? It feels like Series 3 because we've had a massive hiatus since we recorded Tiger Part 2 and Mike because we've been busy.
Yes.
My family's got a new addition. And
congratulations.
And you've got a job.
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah. I'm quite enjoying it. So
yeah, it's good.
Okay.
It's good.
Right.
So today we have
Malc and Venville.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good.
Great old mate. Brilliant photographer, film director, Hollywood guy. This is going to be so much to go at, so we're going to have to be very focused on billboards.
And I think he's already texting you because he's outside the door.
Right, I'll go and get him. Malc and Venville, TV director, commercials director, film director, writer, photographer, and most importantly, friend of Leonardo DiCaprio and Hugh Todd. Sorry, I had to get that in. Welcome to Behind the Billboard.
Well, thanks, Hugh. I actually don't know, Lee. I've shook his hand maybe twice. So.
Okay, so I was saying to the girls last night, if you should
know Hugh. I just want to check.
I know Hugh very well.
Because he keeps talking that he knows you, but I think he likes to do this. He's like, I know Malcolm. Yeah, I know him really well.
I did.
Have you shaken his hand once or twice?
If you shake my hand, that's like you're one from Leonardo. So thanks for that clarification. So thanks for coming on. Blimey, this is the first one we've done. Oh no, that's going to blow the order, isn't it? Anyway.
No, but it's the first one we've done in this new studio.
In this new studio. Okay, so that's legit.
So hopefully our listeners are going to hear the sound quality improvements from doing it on Zoom and Teams. And
me not doing that. I've been doing that. That's better, right. So Malc, how are you today? How do we find you? Are you okay?
I'm good. I'm happy to be in South London.
Yes. What are you doing? Because obviously we're mates, but I know a bit what you've been up to. South Africa, London, LA. Could you tell us a bit what projects you're on at the moment?
I'm just editing a 6-hour show about Abraham Lincoln, a miniseries for History Channel, which I shot in South Africa, and it's a drama doc. So you've got recreations and dramatic recreations, and you've got archive, and you've got interviews. Obama's going to be in it, actually.
No way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're shooting him in November in DC.
Oh, so if you shook his hand, then
not yet.
Okay,
I'm loitering on that one.
Then you have to change the intro. Friend of Obama and Hugh Todd.
I think Obama's above Leonardo. I was looking on your website, actually, just to refresh my mind, and some of your stills from that show are amazing. How do you get those stills out of interest? Do you do it, or do you take it off of the film?
It's a bit of both. I mean, I always have my camera hanging around my neck, because when you're doing period stuff, it's so long to set up a scene or a shot. You can just go and fill your time taking snaps while you're not complaining at actors.
It's so atmospheric. It's amazing. It's just steeped.
The Civil War is really interesting because it's all oil lamps and candles.
Right.
So it's just mood and atmosphere. It comes easy to that genre.
Yeah. So how long were you out there for?
I was out there for like 4.5 months. Right. It was, in Cape Town. Yeah, it's tough out there. Yeah, it's rugged. All the extras are skinny.
Yeah.
Was that over their winter or their summer?
It was the end of their summer into autumn there, which is amazing for the light.
Yeah.
It's magic, right? Shooting summer there is really hardcore.
Yeah. I love that area. We've got some family in Cape Town. It's brilliant.
Oh, it's really interesting.
So you in between stuff in London, and you were mentioning you're going to go to New York.
Yeah. So we're going over there to do sound and colour, and then we're doing a couple of additional interviews. We're cutting as well. So we have 3 editors, one on each episode, 3 episodes.
And is it very different shooting like a miniseries to a film? The post.
Yes, it is. It's a whole different story, because you have these experts that are telling you all your exposition is done by your experts. Where on a film, it's much more challenging. Storytelling is much greater, I think.
Right. So it makes advertising and posters like a walk in a park.
Well, I think what's great about advertising is it's like a film school in a way.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you're forced into clarity in your storytelling by necessity.
Yeah, and do you think that billboards, we're here to talk about billboards today, do you think billboards are a kind of a single frame in your entire story to help tell that story? Is that how you attack it as a storyteller?
I think it is a frame, definitely, but composing that frame, designing that frame, evoking the mood in that frame, it's a really highly developed craft, or it used to be. Like a 48-sheet poster meant something. It was an emotional thing for me, because it was so visible. You wanted it to be perfect on every level.
It's like public art, right? So you are putting something into the public. They're not paying to go in. It is going to be seen by potentially millions of people.
Yes.
You spend that time on it. You spend the craft on it.
Yeah, and that's what I really enjoyed. And that formed the foundation, I think, of what my career was, which was kind of the plastic side of things, of arranging elements within a frame.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, Haggerty talked about what everyone does, but you can't skip a billboard, You're there, so we always say it better be bloody good. Otherwise, it's going to be on show for ages, and it's.
So now we're on to the kind of the Billboard chat. One of the new segments that we've got is the billboard at the end of my street. So the idea is that everyone gets to see out of home advertising at some point in their journey, whether that's leaving the house. I guess for you that could have been out of South Africa, could have been out of LA, could have been out of London. But give us one that you've seen at the end of your street over the last little while that really has stood out.
Well, it's really difficult for me because I don't look anymore.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't look anymore. I don't. It's just I'm in a different zone now, in a different area. I just don't. Like when I was doing billboards, the client never meant anything to me.
Right.
The ad agency meant everything.
Right.
It was the collaboration, was the joy of it, and their trust and their faith. But now I look at billboards and it's a lost. I'm worried about it. I worry.
Do you think it's a lost art? Do you think it's been cheapened? Do you think what's the?
Yeah, I mean, like we were having a conversation earlier about virtual.
Yeah.
Like interactive virtual. I think that's the way forward, really. I think I don't know if I've seen a billboard that has made me emotional.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think the standout stuff over the last little while and kind of in modern billboard area has been either something digital with augmented reality put in, or something interactive, or something that's a special build that stands out of the ordinary. Which we've talked the history of on our podcast when we talked about the Economist stuff with the light bulb, things that have been added to a traditional 48-sheet unit to bring it to life. So we're talking about we've talked a lot about the Dracula piece from BBC from a couple of years ago, where they use light and shadow to help tell the story. But those things are really stand out. And I think it's just the nature of the space that we're in right now, is that we've got stuff that lives beyond that billboard, which is some things that we've been talking about recently.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is advanced in good ways, like you're saying, the interactivity and all that. But then also, I don't know, it can also make people quite lazy, because you go, let's just sort of make a 10-second ad and put it on a screen, which it's kind of confusing as a creative, because they go, okay, you got a digital billboard.
Right.
Let's just use like 10 seconds off the TV ad, or let's just do a little kind of pre-roll thing. Yeah. You go, well, but if it was a true billboard, it's like you've just said, it's a piece of art on the street, want people to interact with it, not like you said, just to walk by it and be invisible. If that's how you feel, then that's...
Well, I think it's weird. A lot of clients over the years I've guessed is they want their stuff to be invisible. They want an invisibility.
I bet.
I guess it's finding, great advertising needs a very, very confident client, to cut through,
Yeah.
The worst thing I think about advertising I've learned is that it doesn't have to be good to be effective. It just needs to be present. Right?
Yeah.
But
that's the whole thing about in our space is, people talk about cover and frequency. If I get enough of the message out there, people will remember it.
Right.
And that to some extent is right from a media effectiveness perspective, but not from a creative effectiveness perspective. We need to think about the message. Right. And I agree with you. I think the art of billboard creation is on the wane, and I think that's because we're being attacked by so many other advertising mediums, and that means that the creatives in agencies have lots of different channels to think about when they're thinking about a creative concept.
Right.
So they're thinking about, what does it look like on Instagram? What does it look like on the banner ad? What does it look like on outdoor? What does it look like on TV? So they start to pick and choose the mediums that they're comfortable with. Yes. And it means that there is less craft going on the ones that they're not, I think. And that's...
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was like it's all planning now, isn't it?
It is
strategy and planning, you know. But there's a, you know, I remember when I did my first billboard. You know, I took my parents up to see it.
No way.
Yeah, we like got out, looked at it, you know, and I had my picture taken.
Brilliant.
It was an emotional thing, you know, because it was selfishly, it was part of my photographic journey.
That's your name in lights.
Totally.
Your first billboard is your name up in lights.
Totally.
Right?
So you're reading the script perfectly, mate. So what was that billboard? Can you remember?
It was a Kiss FM poster
Right.
that I did with Tom Carty and Walter Campbell.
Right.
That was actually, you know, it was just a bunch of people dancing with ghetto blasters on their heads. It was very stark and clean and strange.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just interesting, you know, because I have so much control over the aesthetic as a photographer.
Because I wanted to talk how you got into being a photographer and how you got into the business. How did you come to find yourself in front of that billboard with mum and dad and these weird people with speakers on their heads? Was that because you knew Tom and Walt, or how did you get in and work with those guys? Because I love those guys.
Yeah, no, I met Tom and Walt when they were at BBDO, and Andrew Nichol was their creative director.
I forgot about BBDO,
and
yeah.
I was sort of dragging my work around, you know,
like a big bag.
It was I was, you know, and I started working for them because they were misfits.
And so to go back, so you didn't have an agent, you just went around with your stuff, knocking on doors. Where did you learn your craft? Did you go to photography school?
Well, I went to Polytechnic of Central London, had a photography and film course, which I did. It was a bit of a blur, a lot of long words, semiotics. And then I was an assistant for about 3 years. And I worked for this photographer called Duncan Sim, who went around the world doing big travel stuff.
Right.
And I met Dave Dye. I was an assistant. You know, I brought him a lot of cups of tea.
Hello, Dave. Sorry.
Big fan of the show, is Dave.
And
he likes to complain about our audio quality. So.
Not today.
Not today.
But he said, bring your book in. And so he went through my portfolio and he turned every page and he was like, no, no, something there, no.
Glimmer of hope.
And he sent me off. Yeah. Do it again. And it was such a big undertaking, but it really helped me. So Dave really introduced me to the purity of print and advertising imagery, and especially posters. And I started working for him and doing a lot of stuff for Dave. Dave was really into the history and the understanding of, you know, like he knew everything about Bill Bernbach.
Yeah.
You know, he could take you all the way back, Dave.
Yeah.
So I really got a lot out of working with Dave.
Yeah. I mean, you did that right hand, was it?
Yeah. The boxing.
Yeah, I love that. That was McKenna as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
so that's how you then, so you had a little very good intro there. And then you met these misfits, Tom and Walt, you're saying.
Yeah. And we kind of clicked because they were, you know, slightly maladjusted.
What are you saying?
No, they were brilliant, but they just didn't see the world through the same lens as your general creative.
Yeah.
You know,
probably a great place to start. Dave Dye and Tom and Walter. I mean,
yeah. And then I went into Simon's Palmer Denton.
Yeah.
And I ran into this guy who was a school friend.
Right.
And his name was Andy Mackay.
All right.
And he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well," he goes, "Yeah." And so he said to me, "Oh, what did you shoot this?" And it was Herb Ritz rip of a girl with hair all over her face. It was for some kind of hair removal cream.
Right.
So he said, "Can you do that?" So I asked my girlfriend. We did this whole thing, half killed her, shot it, printed it, retouched it, took it into him. And he said, "It's great. We don't have the business yet." But,
it's a pitch.
I did a lot of freebies. You know, it was like take it to the limit, really, especially with Simon's Palmer Denton and the early Wrangler posters.
Yeah. I remember Mark talked to us a lot about that, where
the Wrangler stuff.
Yeah, where they hadn't quite. I don't know if they had the business, they're trying to get it, but they kept saying, "Oh, we'll just do a load." And I think your name was mentioned.
Yeah.
So you got pulled in on the Wrangler stuff.
Yeah, they asked me. I had a tiny little studio share next door to the agency. So I started becoming. We were accessible to each other, and I started hanging out there and looking at a lot of their layouts they were drawing and telling them, "I can do this.
Right.
I can do this."
Wow.
They were pitching on the Sunday Times, and I would shoot stuff for them, and
brilliant.
It was really interesting. There was a great energy in that place.
So you're virtually not an in-house photographer, but because one of my questions was to ask you, I remember as a kid going through all the annuals and seeing your name on everything, like just the cool shit like Nike and NSPCC, Sony, Wrangler, and I was like, this guy's everywhere. And it seemed like you were, but did you kind of nurture a relationship with creatives? So you made sure you were you got to know them as opposed to, having an agent and being a bit...
1,000%. Yeah, that I was sort of that part of that new wave. I think that didn't rely on was no go-betweens. Like a lot of the creatives, Tom, Walt, Dave, Di, you, other creatives became friends, and we shared the same kind of outlook.
Yeah,
so we're on the same page, if you like.
It's interesting though, because you've got to be of a pretty high standard anyway to be chatting to people. But I always felt, I always liked you as a character anyway. And I was always pretty humbled when you did a job or two for us. And we did some films as well, didn't we? We had lots of fun, basically. It was great. But I think Tom always used to talk to me about the X factor, about a job. And he'd say, what is it? What you got? And then you always do that as well. You go, what's the idea? And it's always what's the idea, not the, I'll shoot that. And I always thought that was really interesting because that's someone vested in
trying to get the story. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was the first one with Tom and Walt? It was the first Billboard?
Kiss FM.
Kiss
posters.
FM.
Yeah, when Kiss went legal.
Yeah, okay, yeah. They were pirate radio, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. And they were legal. So we were shooting a lot of print for them and posters,
So can we just say our listeners, so we can't find these posters. You got hold of Walter last night. You went to the lockup. It wasn't in there,
So it's
I have them.
challenge to the listeners.
Yeah. I remember they were like, we're doing some 96 sheet posters, and that was like slightly disturbing, a 96 sheet.
Yeah.
Because the format, a
big,
48 sheet
big
poster,
and wide, super landscape, yeah.
Yeah, it was really tricky. A 48 sheet was like a dream for me.
Yeah.
It was like
it's a nice framing.
It's a perfect cinema frame.
Yeah.
But a 96 sheet was a challenge.
Strange, it is so flat, isn't it?
It really is. But like a one sheet, one sheet was like, that's like almost like a painting.
Yeah.
Classical painting.
Yeah. So you did Reiki and Wrangler. You did Nike and Wrangler. Just touch on Nike for a bit, because I know that was one of the most famous Billboard campaigns Mark's been on and talked about. It's just an amazing campaign. But I know your name was on a lot of them, but some of them you didn't, because I kept thinking, how did he shoot Ian Wright in that position? It's like, no, that was like an existing shot, but you shot the ball and the net and all the bits around it. Is that right?
Yeah, I think as an agency, they were very smart, at creating strong posters by any means necessary, rather than, we need Ian Wright for 4 hours, which is never going to happen. We didn't really have the money to do that.
Yeah.
So I'd take a stock shot. And I, as I said, I was always available.
Yeah.
So can you shoot a net or a ball?
Yeah.
And it basically led to the Brian Moore poster.
The one where
it's not the winning, it's the taking apart.
Yes.
And, so I built up a trust there.
Right.
And then they started giving me really good work. When they were in British Telecom, I started shooting a lot of print, moved into TV commercials, posters, and they got Nike, they had Wrangler, they had a lot of poster work.
And were you okay with that? Were you saying to yourself, this is how I'm going to get on in the business? I'm going to, what were you self-funding? Were you getting any money at all?
Yeah.
Does Mark Denton owe you money, Mark, if you're listening?
No, I'm so grateful to Chris and Mark, because their energy. Yeah. Their energy was just amazing, and they're storytellers, those guys.
Yeah.
That's what they are, And I picked up a lot of stuff from them. There's a great economy to a lot of the work they were doing. Yeah. Even when they're at BBH, like looking at what they've achieved is very inspiring.
I was going to say, do you think it's important? You've worked with tons of creative partners on their ideas they've come up with, and you're kind of bringing it to life. Do you think the repeat business you get from the same creative pairs is to do with the way that the outlook that you were talking about, that you see the world in the same way and the same narrative?
Yes, I think so. I think, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a human level which we all like each other.
Yeah,
and there's a kind of give and take in the process. Like of all the things that I've learned in my career is that a good creative is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
The other side of the fence is horrible. But you can learn. I mean, I've learned more from like Tom and Walt in terms of editing. Those guys can edit like much better than a lot of editors, a lot of top editors.
And you think is that to do with the fact that most of the editing that they have to do is for shorter form video? I think getting the message across quickly.
I think they wanted to. No, I think they were just interrupters.
Right. Okay.
They wanted to break the cycle.
Okay.
They wanted to invert. They were a problem. They're a problem to agencies and clients, I think, because they looked at the world in a different way.
Yeah.
But it made them. I mean, they produced Guinness Surfer. I mean,
it would be interesting how a team like them would fare now, because it's very hard. I remember in those days there was them and there was Rich and Andy. There were certain superstar teams who would just do work, which just stood above everything.
Yeah.
It's stuff that breaks the mold, though, isn't it? It's stuff that stands alone. So I guess you're right. You have to see the world in a different way, or challenge the status quo in order for you to stand out.
Yeah. I mean, what's great about advertising, the creative game, is anyone who can tell a story or a joke is welcome.
Yeah.
So you'll get people from all walks of life.
I remember Walter and Tom, me and Adam used to show our book to people, and they were one of the first teams we showed, and they went through the book and said, "Oh, you should make these ads. You should make these." And we went, "Oh yeah," and then just walked off. We just done like storyboards. Said, and Walter said, "No, make them. I'm going to let you make them," and we made them. He got us these Harley Davidson ads made through Stark Films. I couldn't believe it, and
I remember those.
Basically, Tom and Walt made, and that started our career.
Right,
and we see Trevor Beatty and Tom. Trevor and Al, and just that kind of generation. Once you've had that, I was chatting to a friend of the training. You never forget it, like you said, and it sticks you. And it's actually, I find, a little bit painful because you don't leave it ever. I was walking along the other day and I saw this bus side of race, and I said, that's not working. That, and it's just for a film. She goes, "What are you doing?" I goes, "Look, that word." She goes, "Just let it go. I've got to get home." But you kind of go.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, it's awful. I wanted to move on from Simon's Palmer stuff and talk a little bit about another great campaign, another great agency, another great team, Tom Hudson and Mike Wells at BBH. You did the Sony Walkman posters, a couple of those, the ad shells. Could you tell us a bit about that? How you, because they're just to explain, we'll post it up, but they're shoes that look like faces of people. So Walkman, but how did you get involved? At what stage were you involved?
I never really worked for BBH much, but I think they liked some of the use of color that I had. So my contribution to that is just the color of the backgrounds.
Okay, that's that story over.
But they gave me the trick is to light them as simply as possible, but use a bit of color.
Right.
But
then who? In the process, and who did the models?
The models were done by it was a French sculptor. It was an artist. And they saw his shoes and thought, wow, we'll put some headphones on those. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So literally it just turned up in a box. I took it out, like, orange will be good. So, and like, say, the Wrangler posters where you had to find a character, cast him, wardrobe him, get the right mood, get the right lighting, that was much more challenging. This was much easier, but the idea was super simple.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I remember, but then I looked at some of your other work, and you did have quite a bit of model making going on. Did you? And there wasn't much post. Was that a sort of choice? Did you, or was it just of the time? Or
my career started just as like the digital retouching kicked off, like Cytex computer. I don't know if you remember it. It was this giant computer, and it was just there was an element, there was retouching, but it was very hidden. I really don't like special effects that much, but I had a small studio share, and they had a Cytex computer there, and this thing was a beast. It was so slow, painful.
But so did you always like to do stuff in camera?
Oh yeah,
if you could,
100%.
And do you think that, because I always find that ads just makes it feel more authentic, more real when you look at stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, I suppose now you probably can't tell a difference, but at the time, you could feel the work more.
It depends on who you're working for, what stories you want to tell. I mean, it's obviously way more human to work in camera. You know,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, so many people argue it's so highly finished now. So I mean, when I take photographs now, it's a massive cheat. There's probably 400 decisions in every photograph. You know, in the post production of that photograph.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but back in those days, you know, we're talking about now. It was like making an image was a commitment.
Mm.
You know, you committed.
Could you talked about one of our favourite ones, Silk Cut, the Messerschmitt car. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it is a Messerschmitt.
How did you get involved in that?
well,
Because that's a seminal campaign.
Well, Silk Cut is what I mean. It's weird. My dad died of lung cancer, and I always said, you know, I can't work on tobacco, but
No.
somehow or another, when Saatchi started producing this work, it was so cinematic.
Yeah.
I mean, the Psycho shower poster, I mean, it was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
That's the kind of storytelling I want to.
Well, that's what you were saying earlier about a frame.
A frame from a film, yeah.
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
really fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. So that level of storytelling was really exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I'd shot some like attempts at Silk Cut, which were a disaster.
What, proactive?
Yeah, like I had this. There was an old photographer I knew who had white hair.
Right.
I put him in a white shirt,
Yeah.
and he had a silk cut tie with a snip in the tie, and it was just horrible.
Nice.
Lovely guy, awful picture. But
Did you take that in and show?
I did. I
Alex
showed it
Taylor
to
and people?
yeah, I showed it to. Trying to work out who it was now. Was it Charles? Who's? I'm trying to think.
Charles Hen.
I can't remember now who it was.
Oh no, we're not trying to find the word Charles Saatchi. We know Charles Saatchi. If anyone's wondering.
I did used to see him kicking around, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then if you showed enough willing, did someone go, let's give one to Malcolm?
It was. I think a Silk Cut poster was a big catch. You know, it was a big one.
Yeah.
You know, and the Messerschmitt one. You know, I think what I brought to my work was a bit of wit and levity.
Yeah,
You know,
totally. You still do.
And I think they wanted that in this Messerschmitt poster. You know, and so I love a bit of wardrobe and a bit of costume and
But I think that's also the sign of a good creative pair as well. And going back to what I was saying earlier on, is being open to exploring the narrative further in studio or at the shoot.
Right.
Because, or pre-production even, you know, you have to allow a photographer or a director to give their version of your story
Right.
some extra lift.
right,
Because, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're looking at a scamp or a mock-up.
right.
And you have to bring it to life because the what's normally quite flat in a mock-up or
Yes.
a scamp
Yeah.
has to turn into something beautiful.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's so spare and so simple. It's all about what you're taking away from the shot rather than what you're bringing to it.
Yeah.
But we're looking at it now. It's the landscape version of the what is it? What's the name of the character? Is
It's
a German?
it's
no.
like an imperial German soldier from like the First World War.
And his spike has gone through the silk cut, the silk roof. So did you? I'm always fascinated. Sometimes, as a creative, you can sort of have a chat with a director or a photographer. It's something like this,
Yeah.
and then the photographer and director genuinely brings the magic, and you're going, "Oh my god, got out of jail and they were brilliant." Or you get very, very good finished layout, which the photographer kind of goes, "I'll just shoot that then."
Right.
Was this? Which was this? Was this? Did you get it and go, "Oh wait, great, I'll just add to it"?
It was, I just got a marker pen on a bit of paper, faxed through to me. It was like it was like a childlike drawing.
Really?
But just, it was enough. It was, and a lot of creatives in those days would leave you alone with it. Like Mark Reddy. Do you remember this guy? Mark Reddy?
Yeah.
Mark Reddy I did some print for him and some posters for him, and he turned up, opened the door, stuck his head in, and went, "Everything all right?" And I went, "Yeah," and then he left. and in a way, it heightened the responsibility on me to produce, something which was right.
We did some stuff with him on Barclays, and it was the opposite for me. He was like really involved. It was a motion piece. It was some spinning turntable with stuff on. I can't remember what it was called. But he was really interested in the intricacies of the digital world. So starting to get transferring from kind of a single frame into 25 frames per second.
Was this shot? Where did you get the car?
The car, I mean, it belonged to Nick Mason, the drummer from Pink Floyd.
Wow.
He had a collection
We
of
got
cars.
Pink Floyd on the pod. Brilliant.
So I went over to his collection. We
Right.
sort of looked at it. We rented it from him, and then we covered the roof in silk.
I was going to say, be really angry if he gets it back and there's a hole in it.
But
Shit, so it's a real one, and it's a studio shot, obviously.
yeah, it's 10x8 cameras. Think about big posters in those days. It was like you got to use a big format camera.
Yeah.
You couldn't.
Did you have to give it? So if it's from his collection, I imagine it's in pretty good nick.
It was in beautiful condition.
Yeah, so you didn't have to like someone going, "Oh, there's a little dent there and a scratch there."
No, it was in.
While we're talking about cameras and being on shoots for billboards, how it was back then, shooting on film,
Yeah.
getting everything set and shooting as much as possible and kind of checking it later, versus what it's like now in the digital world. How's the day of a shoot changed in billboard world
Yeah, the speed is just phenomenal. I mean, you shoot, retouch. A photographer will shoot, the retouch will be next door to him, and it'll deliver that day.
And so, but first, so from a creative perspective, for the creative partnership, they're sitting there watching you shoot. You're doing shot selects on the day and retouching. I mean, do you think that contributes to what we were talking about earlier, of how the medium has changed? The craft has now been condensed from what was 2 to 3 weeks into 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
Do you think that's changed our billboard process as well?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, we're in a different. Once upon a time there was one photograph.
Yeah.
In the world, 1827 in France, one photograph, and can you imagine how many photographs have been taken like right this second?
Yeah.
So we're entering into a kind of period of like blindness, where we're just assailed, aren't we, every second of the day.
And what do we do to get? I'm not saying we go back and everyone shoots on large format or medium format cameras on film. What do we do as an industry to get back to that level of craft?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think agencies need to reestablish themselves first, as a creative fountainhead. Because I think, what can I say? The client and advertising, they're very at the very core is a confident client who trusts their agency.
Yeah.
And going direct to clients now is that's also interesting. You cut out. We're just looking for creative standards. I think.
Yeah.
Creative standards is the key.
I think the agency world has changed quite drastically over the last 5 to 10 years as well. It used to be the big agencies winning all the work.
Yeah.
We're now seeing that move to either an in-house model, where they're taking people from the creative industry and moving them into business, or to these boutique agencies that are popping up from a design background or from a photographic background, and they are winning clients. And some of the best work, I think, in our industry is coming up from those boutique agencies.
Well, I asked that question. What's that commercial? It was a Pepsi commercial that was made with that supermodel in it. Went horribly wrong.
Oh, yeah.
The
Kardashian.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was an in-house.
The riot thing, right?
Yeah. It was an in-house. Was that intentional or not intentional?
I don't know. I'm such a skeptic. I'm like, well, any publicity.
It was a horror show, wasn't it? It was awful.
I mean, it was bad for their stock price. But
for me, an agency was they're like lawyers. They're like consultants. They're like advisors. They tell you what's right. They tell you the taste values and the levels, and they tell you the strategies of communication. They're very important in a way. The problem is they've been eaten away by the loss of control. Like John Hegarty tells you something, you listen, right?
We've talked before about the creative agencies of old had the media inside in the building as well. And I think we were talking to Dave about this, weren't we? Yeah. The big shift of media agency being separate and creative agency being separate, they're kind of moving in the same trajectories. And we mentioned it earlier on, the difference between media effectiveness and creative effectiveness. One is talking to the client about media effectiveness, and that means they may be talking about a different strategy than what the creative in front of you is.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
you've got to be aligned, haven't you?
You have to.
Can I ask? Sorry, I'm just looking at the guy still.
Right.
So did you ask him? Did everyone go? Can you get him to smile?
Well,
can you get him to be? Got to be sick because he's sort of going and he like the But did someone go? Because as instinctively, as a creative, I'm going. That's too big. That's overdoing it. Just keep it But then looking at now, I love the fact that he's sort of looks like he's a bit.
Do you remember that movie, The Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machine?
Yeah.
He's kind of stolen from that, that actor. And it sometimes on a billboard, when you've got a very small figure doing something very big, is interesting.
Yeah.
But if you have a very big face doing something small, that's interesting too.
I think that for me, because there's layers to it. You go, it's a silk cut ad. I got it. Then you lean in, you're going, oh look, it's gone through the roof. Oh, it's an old Messerschmitt car. Oh my God, there's for me, there's just layers of it. It's just so simple, but it doesn't stop at the idea. You've added X, Y, and Z, which I think is what I love about it.
I saw a piece of eye tracking research about billboards. People trying to carve up how you look at billboards effectively, and trying to decide. It helps inform layouts and where you should place things.
Right.
But when there's a face on a billboard, people, I think it's something inside us that we always look for the face. So when you've got an image like this, you'll always look for the expression, or you'll always look for the person driving the car. So it's quite interesting. It's really framing right in the middle, and so you can.
That's the trick. The word, when you look at a poster and you're somehow rewarded, or you're somehow moved.
Yeah, I remember someone saying about you want to look at something and not quite get it, and then look at the logo or the line or something, and you go, I got it. But it's all happening, like you said, in like milliseconds.
Yes.
But it's so rewarding because then you don't feel like you've been insulted. Like, hey, buy silk cut fags. I'll get you off your head.
Right.
But they used to get me off my head. But there's so much subtlety and nuance in it. I just love it. Did you, when you went in with it, can you remember if was Alex Taylor there?
Yeah, Alex Taylor was there.
And did you have to, because she was on the show and she said she used to have to get in a lift and go up to Charles's office with these layouts and literally hold them up to him, and he'd go, yes.
From across the room, because they're billboards,
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it was just a different time, but it was still.
Well, I think with a project like this is that when you shoot it, you just give yourself options. You just shoot as many options as you can.
Yeah.
You'll shoot. So, if that expression's too big.
And you also shot it straight on, didn't you?
Yeah, I shot that was the one sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that as well.
Yeah, the one sheet's pretty good.
Yeah. It's a perfect shape, isn't it? The meshes fit. And
no, it's a great. I mean, it's cigarette advertising. That's the weird thing about it.
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned it.
But
there's a in the US lots of cannabis advertising in different states. There's different rules now.
Right.
And it's regulated. There's things you can say and can't say, but it feels like the regulations of old with cigarette advertising.
Right.
The what you can say and what you can't.
Right.
What logos you can put and what you can't.
Right.
And there is from a creative perspective, some of the stuff that we're seeing from the US office is quite interesting because there's definitely a pull towards some of the stuff that we were seeing here in cigarette advertising and how it changed.
I did a poster once for Absolute Vodka, and the bottle was like kind of a lens. And you saw the reality, and there was a zebra being chased by a leopard.
Right.
But when you saw through the lens, you saw a man's foot wearing a leopard skin shoe, and a woman's wearing a leopard skin boot. And they pulled it because they said, "Oh, it's sexual success."
Was that Smirnoff?
Yeah, Smirnoff. That's right,
Smirnoff.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know that.
And I said, well, we got to make it a woman. And I said, well, that's sexual success as well. I mean, like, they're always lagging behind a bit. What was the governing body?
ASA.
ASA.
But it's going to happen with if it's not happening already with gambling, isn't it? Because that's become
and vaping. It's all happening, isn't it?
But it's like Heg used to say,
all the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. the fun nights out. But it's like out of restriction comes creativity, and that's what happened with cigarettes. They said, right, we've gone a name, or we got the shape of something like vodka, so the clarity is.
Yeah.
It's always, I think, like you said, if a client wants to go for it, we're there.
Yeah.
But I think, it's interesting you said when we started saying I used to answer to an agency and the creatives and that time is gone now. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's keep going back in time a little bit to when we were a bit more out there. 2 campaigns at BBH we wanted to talk about. Lynx, the feminine thing, and Levi's cut in the 60s. Should we start with the Lynx feminine thing? So it's Dave Monk and Matt Waller, wasn't it, who did it? But Rosie was a CD. So can you, because I remember at the time working there, I was in the next door office and I was a bit annoyed because it was like a different take on the Lynx effect.
Weren't you only just there? Was it you annoyed that you didn't get it?
Well, no, we'd already.
Oh, okay.
We'd had
Right,
our
fine.
bit.
You'd had your success.
Yeah, we'd had our. Well, we did some posters with you about the lenticular.
Yes.
Yeah, which we.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Won't be running.
I like that.
Well, we'll come back to that. But yeah,
I was a really brilliant, like cerebral idea for a poster. You know,
Yeah.
It was inviting you into this kind of masculine, feminine, French,
yeah.
aesthetic, which I really enjoyed doing. And again, super simple storytelling.
Yeah. Did you? Because I remember. I don't think I was also caught up on my own little world. Then I probably didn't ask. But when you there were images of men being looked in on or advanced on
Kind of
by
voyeurism.
Yeah, by a chair, a concrete mixer, and a wheelbarrow.
Yes.
So
feminine objects.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was going to ask a facetious question about how was the casting of the wheelbarrow. But joking aside, was it all in camera again?
Oh yeah, all in camera. I mean, retouching for me was just a finishing tool.
Right.
It was never really a primary image making tool.
Because the chair outside the window is just genius.
Well, I remember we had Alex on talking about silk cut, and she went out and got 200 different pairs of scissors from markets. I'm assuming that there were 200 chairs lined up outside the studio to decide which one was.
Yeah, I never needed to see that many chairs or cement mixers. I would see like 6.
I bet you've seen a few cement mixers in your time. Sorry.
No, but I remember. Do we want one with cement on it or without cement?
Is it genuine? Like, how messy should it be?
But I love those conversations. I want to write a book one day of all the conversations I've had either on set or in a briefing room where we're talking about the project. So those random conversations should have concrete on the mixer.
Adam used to coin it silver spoon or wooden spoon, which was, I always thought, you could be for ages in a pre-prod going, it's just a spoon. Doesn't matter. But that was again, you must have had an eye on that campaign because it was slightly different to the other Lynx effect. It was a bit cooler somehow.
Yeah, I the other stuff wasn't really my scene, because it was sort of glam,
Yeah.
This is more like graphic and thought-provoking.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then a bit further down the corridor, as I remember, there was Tiger Savage and Paul Silburn, the team, and they worked on Levi's White tab.
Right.
And it was just cutting the 60s stuff. And I remember being very, very jealous of that work as well. And I was going through D&AD and I saw your name on it. But then I remember thinking, you can't have shot Henry Cooper. I was thinking, how is Malcolm in the ring with Henry Cooper? I was like, no, you idiot. It was the guy with the haircut.
Yeah.
His name's Mark Lester, who used to be
from the agency.
From the agency.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit? We've had an inkling off of Tiger Savage about this haircut that you had to have, and then
I'm trying to scratch my brains to remember.
I can fill you in a little bit. She said, so Mark was a really good lad, and it's a great idea, like cut in the 60s, and it was beautifully art directed, great shot. Right. But I think she said, sent Mark to go off and get his haircut, and it wasn't very good.
So he wigged him.
So you wigged him. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's
Can
right.
you remember that?
Yeah.
And then did you do a lot of wigs?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just part of the process, right? It's like, but we don't see 200 wigs. We just saw,
Yeah. No,
look, hairdressers are so much. You can work magic.
Yeah. No, it was, but it was a brilliant campaign. Another one where.
Yeah, I met Tiger at Simon's Palmer actually.
Oh right.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
And did you shoot some of her stuff?
Yeah, I did a bunch of those posters for her for a lot of Nike stuff. I would just shoot stuff that was when she was around, bits and pieces.
Yeah, she shot Tiger's proper art director.
Yeah.
So just for continuity, we recorded a two-parter with Tiger, and we've launched the first one earlier in the year, but we've had a bit of a hiatus. So Tiger Part 2 has only just been released, and we talked about a couple of these things with Tiger, didn't we?
Yeah.
I remember shooting an Asprey's campaign for her when she was at MC, I think.
That's right.
And it was with, we were shooting Rupert Everett dressed as a sort of a warrior.
Right.
And he's like, he's got this kind of flag and a shield, and I'm shooting this picture. I'm like, this is looking really good, Tiger.
Yeah.
and he looked at me like,
brilliant.
And I was, no, her name's Tiger.
Oh yes, darling. Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Should we go on to move on and talk about VW
Yes.
and the squares?
Yeah, VW. I mean, it's just so much fun to work with. Well, I learned a lot on that job because John Pertwee was Doctor Who when I was a kid.
Oh, do the Doctor Who thing first, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. And so this idea with the Volkswagen Golf estate was like as big as a TARDIS, right? So we got the Doctor Who's in. But John Pertwee, we were shooting all these different permutations of that poster.
Right.
I'd say to him, like, John, can you just turn to your right and then raise your right arm and then move your left arm and raise your chin. And it became this comedy. He became like this
a robot.
And he wrote me this letter afterwards saying, so sorry, I just couldn't resist it, you know. And if you ever have another job for an old man, let me know. And it was just such a nice. But I realized that, you know, like micromanaging actors is really dangerous, you know, because everyone was laughing except me, obviously, you know.
God, it's like
that's probably the same as the what we're talking about with creatives and a photographer, where you have as a director and videographer with an actor who's applying their craft as well, right? That you have to give them the latitude to apply their craft.
Yeah, absolutely. It applies on every level in life, doesn't it? You know, from political leadership down to you know, it's like, how do you delegate?
Yeah.
Did you? I'm just looking at it now. So you got John Pertwee. I think it's Peter Davidson. Is that his name? Yeah, and then Tom Baker. So Peter Davidson's nose is actually touching the glass.
Right.
Did you ask?
Yeah.
I imagine you went through, should they all touch the glass? Should we get John Pertwee movie? Did you have changing the order?
I mean, I actually have some good wide shots of the three doctors walking around the car, which I've got to find.
Oh, like an inspection.
Yeah, like but it was very precise, you know.
It's really interesting because, again, this is why you're so good at what you do. I would probably be going, oh yeah, maybe just have the doctors looking at it, you know, scratching their chin and that. And then there's so many, it's a great little story, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the TARDIS, the doctors get them.
Yeah.
But that is the best version because you get it in a moment,
right?
Don't you? But there are those details. I didn't actually realize his nose was touching the screen.
Yeah.
It's great.
There's a lot of decision. What's interesting about shooting a big poster is all the decisions leading up to taking the photograph.
Yeah, because the photograph is nearly, not the last bit, but it's very much, you're nearly done.
Yeah.
I suppose with retouching, you can change it in post.
Yeah.
But for this, one question I want to ask is, why three doctors? They might not be for you. Surely one would have been enough, but did they want to nod to the others?
Oh, I think they wanted the value of three, you know.
Right,
and three's a good number.
Because I'm just working on Doctor Who at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm quite Doctor Who up.
Well, I think having like the three there gave it a bit more impact.
Oh, totally. Yeah, if one would feel a little bit, I don't know.
You know.
I've just imagined there must have been quite a lot of status going on with John Pertwee.
Oh yeah. I brought my
Who gets to go in the middle?
So it's the young lad in the end.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the nipper.
Yeah. Sorry, and like Dan mentioned, we talked about VW, and obviously one of your most famous commercials of all time is the squares. But you said on the phone the other night you did print.
Yeah, I did print and posters for it. You know,
never seen them.
Yeah, I have to dig those out.
Never ran, mate. Never ran.
Well, I think if you look in the one shot, I think they did well there.
I'd love to see them.
But that was Arnold's in Boston. Yeah, they had an incredible client called. His name was, I can't remember his first name. His name was Gas Lowley. And I remember I did a cinema ad for the Phaeton, this ill-fated luxury car, Volkswagen built.
Right.
And we did this ad, and the creative director said to me, just get Gas Lowley's name in it somewhere. So we had an institute.
Hidden?
No, like in the film.
Oh, right, okay.
So we had the Gas Lowley Institute as the name of this hospital where these.
Oh, okay.
And that's all he wanted, the client. You know, as long as he got his name in.
Wow.
He would let us carte blanche.
That's what you want.
So with the squares, you know, they were really interested in the convertible ad. And they said to me, like, we've got this idea, but we're not going to be around. You go off and shoot it.
Right.
Cut it, just deliver it.
That's why it's so amazing.
You know, and so
Mark Reddy thing.
It's the trust thing.
Yeah.
You know. So we cut it, and it turned out to be like the biggest award-winning commercial in the world that year.
Amazing.
It was just when Ad Critic kicked off and creativity. Right. So suddenly it's on everyone's laptop. You know. So it was really effective. You know, and it was a really strong.
I remember the sound as well was brilliant.
Yeah.
Something about it is very recessive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nowadays I find that I get, if there's a square or a circle or a zero or a plus sign, they'll come to me for it.
Yeah, I get that guy. He does the squares and circles. Venville. Yeah, I can do like feature films in Hollywood. Yeah, no, forget that.
Well, it's simplistic, right?
Yeah. It's a beaut. It's an absolute beaut. It's still good now.
Right.
And then we must finish appropriately maybe on a Guinness. We you had some Guinness work, excuse me, which I was kicking around it. But you said the one that was really interesting was one that nearly lost them the business.
We did lose them the business.
Did lose it. So it's Ogilvy and Mather. Right?
Yeah, it was O&M, and Adam Denton was the creative at the time.
Adam Denton.
Yeah, Mark Denton's brother.
Seriously?
Yeah, and they
didn't know.
It was print and poster. Not everything in black and white makes sense. Yeah. I think was the idea. And there was a picture of a preacher and a picture of a bunch of men nude bathing and shots like that
with quotes, famous quotes.
Yeah, and really good sort of black and white style.
Yeah.
Anyways, but they had this one print ad. We want to do this ad, and I looked at it, and it was a spoof of Stephen Milligan, who was a Tory MP who had recently died during.
Was it having a sex act?
Yeah,
yeah.
And he had like an orange in his mouth.
Yeah,
and they wanted to spoof that, like, and I said, "You're joking?" And no, we want to make this. So we rigged up this GIMP with a picture of John Major and a bowl of oranges hanging from this ceiling. And
at some point, someone should have gone.
And then
it's not a good idea.
A friend of mine said, "Did you see the Sunday Telegraph? Like the chairman of the Tory party, like went for the agency and the client, and boom, I could have been wrong, but I think that was the end of the experience for them."
Yeah. Wow.
It's only a bit of fun.
It's only a photo.
Yeah. Because, you forget those moments and people, maybe slightly judging it.
I've been around a few kind of instances where the kind of press have got hold of something and it goes on and on and on and comments on social. And there's a real moment at an agency when it happens. Right. Like, oh, have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? And it's almost exciting as much as it is scary.
I mean, the trouble is, in the old days, those conversations are in a pub or in the street.
Yeah.
Now, like, people can see it.
It's social media.
I remember working on a job. I won't say for whom and where, but someone was going, "Take these comments down," and going, "You can't. It's the public. It's the world. you can't take that." And then they were just coming in like 5 minutes.
It goes ping, 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 ping.
It's like, someone stop this. Going, can't. So I suppose that's the horror.
You were never exposed to that ever.
No.
Because you on posters. You're free. You were like free of that.
Yeah. Do you? We always ask at the end, do you have a billboard or billboards that is your favourite?
Well, I think, in my head, it's really the early Benetton stuff.
Right.
It had so much impact.
Yeah.
I'm talking more about the AIDS victim than I am about shots of, girls.
Yeah.
Those posters were very disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, it was they were commenting on culture, weren't they? But just using the colours thing as Mario, was it Mario Testino, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. The creative director of Benetton, who was it? It was
can't remember. Yeah. Did Mario do a few photos?
I mean, they used found footage. They were like
stock footage,
but they were so powerful.
Yeah, put their logo on it.
It's really weird. Clothing. It's a bit like Silk Cut, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what advertising excels at, isn't it?
Yeah, it felt bigger than just a product. Right?
Yeah, it was very lateral.
Yeah, and they probably felt they had the right to do it.
Yeah.
United Colours of Benetton. I mean, it still had a tiny semblance of logic for me, which always worked. I mean, I used to love the magazine, the half French, half English.
Right.
Was it called? It's called Colours, wasn't
it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
well, on the tip side, I think with you, I think we talked about this briefly earlier on. You during your career, you've seen the shift from analog to digital.
Yeah.
And we talked about the kind of that timeline change is almost matched with what we're perceiving as a kind of change in the craft for billboard creation.
Right.
What tips could you give to creatives and photographers out there to try and bring back the heyday of billboard creation? And what should they be thinking about when they're to produce great work?
Well, I think the craft of design and photography. Like, for example, to try and create original work rather than sort of mining libraries, to try and create original work and create an aesthetic and a mood and a language that we had the time to do back then. You know, it's to try and convince clients to spend money. I mean, what's the problem? Spending the money, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Why don't they want to spend money anymore? I mean, what is it? They used to spend money, now they don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
It is.
You know, what are they keeping it for?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they
Research.
What do they do with it?
Yeah.
You know,
More on research than on creative.
Well, I think Dan did make a point earlier, which is it used to be TV, posters, print, and radio, and that's all you had because that's all there was. So you can only do what you got, right? And so in a way, it is very exciting to have all these different platforms you can put your work in.
Well, we're now bombarded with 7,000 ads a day.
Yeah. So it
each.
does.
Like,
It does change.
It's huge.
I know someone who works at Twitter, and they have the auction thing.
Right.
They auction ads, ad space,
Right.
and it's all done by AI. You know,
Yeah.
they're just hitting you.
Right.
The ad spaces are being bought and sold in microseconds.
Wow.
You know,
And, Facebook, Meta, we spoke about it in the corridor.
right?
The way that their system works for advertising, I could, my wife runs her own small brand. We could set up an advert, and there is zero design capability, but you could go, oh, I want to attack mums aged 25 to 35 with 2 kids in Surrey and Hampshire.
Yeah.
And you could be live in minutes with an ad saying you should follow my wife's business.
You know,
From a creative perspective, it looks like shit.
Well, I think with posters were they're expensive.
Yeah.
We're talking a very high level brand, high level communication. There's something sexy about it.
Yeah.
But I think just from where the industry is now, certainly in the UK, we are, in terms of the media market for out of home, it's over 50% digital now. Spend on media is digital.
Right.
And that's going on the underground, on the escalator panels, but it's also going on roadside billboards.
Right.
There's been a massive transformation from paper to pixel in the industry.
Right.
But it does mean that some of the more kind of traditional formats are still there. They also now become a bit of a premium because there's there's the occupancy level. Because there is less of them, people still want them, and there is a premium level. And I think that's where we should see more of the craft coming in. It's like, it is going back to being a premium. Right. It's not now just about the vast quantity of 48 sheet posters on the roadside. It's, I've got a 48 sheet poster. What can I do with it that's different than what was on it for the last 2 weeks?
No, I hear you. It's a really interesting and complex question you ask, because, photography, production ideas cost money, right?
Yeah.
Traveling was a big part. When I was an assistant, we would travel around the world taking photographs of landscapes for cruise lines or beer or car advertising. They'd throw money at it.
Yeah.
And it's just getting back to, finding a client that has the confidence like Steve Jobs once had.
Yeah.
Just spend.
It sings out like the B&Q stuff that was done with Uncommon recently is brilliant. But you can just feel... No one's like trying not to be creative there, have fun. They're literally flying off the agency shelves, that work. And it's brilliant. KFC, some of the stuff at Mother. There are good campaigns out there. I think the difference is there's not as many. So even if there's a kind of okay campaign, it's bumped up to pretty good. Right. And quite good is bumped up to amazing because there's less. Right. So I think there is still good out there, but you're right that there is a lot of wading through quite a lot of rubbish.
And I think, like you said earlier, with the change in photography and the technology in photography, there are more photographers out there. There are more stock libraries. There's more access to photos that have already been shot. Yeah, which makes it, for a creative or for a smaller brand, I get access to all these photos. I don't need to go and spend 20 grand on a shoot and send people around the world. So they go, I've got the picture for the cruise line. That's fine. I'll comp in my boat into that lovely ocean shot. And that's it's a entry level stuff. And it's that changes the craft as well, I think.
It does,
You still get, just to wrap up, do you still get a mixture of jobs? Because, you're obviously a film director, a TV director of commercials and photography. I didn't actually ask you earlier, but do you have a preference for work, or do you just take on the work that interests you, whether it is in photography or blah, blah, blah?
Over the last few years, I've been doing a lot of, I've done a couple of feature films, I've done a couple of docs and these drama documentaries. So I'm definitely kind of in the in that space, I think. But I always like Instagram's really interesting for me because it's like it's a site, it's a place where you can continue taking photographs and remaining in the image making world. Like making images is what I'm all about. Whether it's film or print, nothing matters. There's no difference between anything. It's whether it's good or bad.
That's a really good point. I love your Instagram stuff. It's it's a welcome change from people's cats and dogs or my kids,
Right.
But no, I love it. It's great. Well, look, I want to wrap up to say thanks for coming in. It's been brilliant. It's ace to see you.
Great.
You've brought, so much brilliant work to the table over the years, just, for me and many creatives. And I want to say thanks, and particularly thanks for introducing me to absinthe, which my wife still hasn't forgiven me for.
You still got both your ears though, so that's good.
Yeah, it was quite a night. And I'll leave it there from me.
Well, thank you.
Thanks very much.
You bet. Thanks, Dan. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you again to our amazing guest and to my pod pal, partner in crime, Hugh, for today. Please make sure that you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Keep listening and liking us on social. And we'll see you next time.